We are live here from Brand Innovators at ShopTalk, an event in Las Vegas, catching up with some of the truly leading thought leaders and in practice out there.
Why do you have me here?
Driving.
I'm just joking.
Exactly, in the marketplace. It's just a pleasure. Craig, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, the Shop Talk is the Super Bowl of retail, so it's fun to hang out with Brand Innovators this afternoon.
Of course, of course. So let's do this. Briefly introduce yourself and give us a fun fact about yourself.
So I'm Craig Brommers. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for American Eagle, and I guess my fun fact is I've made my way through the American Mall. I've been in this chair at Calvin Klein, at Gap, at Abercrombie and Fitch. So I've been, in this industry for quite some time, having a ton of fun and feel super privileged to have a front row seat of, at these iconic American brands where marketing is just as important as product.
Absolutely, merchandising, the whole shebang. Yes. You have an amazing background, actually. I did get a chance to take a look at it. You've touched just about all the big marquee brands. That leads me to the question, when you look at American Eagle now, and you've been there for a few years, what distinguishes this brand in the broader retail space?
It's a great question. So there's a couple superpowers that distinguishes American Eagle in the retail marketplace. One is we're Gen Z's #1 retailer. So, we are in the middle of youth culture. We're helping define youth culture.
Yes.
And so if you're age 15 to 25 in the US, you're very often shopping American Eagle or our sister brand Aerie. So that's certainly one superpower. The second is jeans. That's the must-win category for us. So we're the #1 selling jeans for women of all ages in the US.
Wow.
But we have a 20% market share in Gen Z women. So we are just dominant in terms of jeans. It's very impressive. It's huge. One of every 5 pair of jeans. So I think that's another superpower. Just today, USA Today named our stores the best stores in America. So I would say the third superpower that distinguishes is our stores. It's almost counterintuitive for how digitally native our core customer is, but yet, the myth of physical retailer dying is just simply not true. I kind of think a teenager is a teenager and will be forever. And teenagers are social creatures. They want to be out in the real world. And so we have 800 stores, 35,000 store associates, and I think that physical environment, that welcoming environment, that happy environment really distinguishes us as well.
You do offer e-commerce though, right?
Of course. We have a massive e-commerce business. I don't know if we publicly say it, but it's with a B in terms of how big it is, and it is an extremely important part of our overall ecosphere. It's interesting, though, because our best customers shop both channels, right?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So,
yes.
I think...
it's not one or the other.
It's not one or not, and it's not the other. So I really think it's important, again, how you distinguish yourself in this crowded marketplace. And of course, we have to go against the Amazons and the Sheins, that kind of thing. But how we distinguish ourselves is we can play the e-commerce game very well. We can play the physical store game very well. And how do those two interact is where the magic happens for us.
Absolutely. No, that's fascinating. So the other thing I'm learning from some of the press stories and things that are actually getting published out there, you seem to be a big believer in AI. Why? What about AI that's working for you and driving impact for your business?
So I'm going to be humble enough to say that I've been on a personal journey on AI. I mean, I've kind of fallen in love, out of love, and back in love with the opportunities. And I reflect back on my long retail career. I think this is probably the third biggest thing that will happen in my career. First, likely the advent of e-commerce. Second, the monetization of social media. And I really think third will be the impact that AI will have. We've been pretty aggressive recently in testing and learning and refining our approach on AI. I would say below the line, what the customer can't see, we'll probably even be more aggressive in moving as fast as we can, especially when it comes to AI-enabled media buying.
Sure.
When it comes into forecasting and understanding demand.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that we're pretty aggressive. Where we've been slower, but are now beginning to figure out our way in is kind of what I'm calling above the line, and that's probably more creative. And why do I say that is because one of the fundamental values of our brand is that we are real. We're for real people. Whatever background you bring, whatever size you are, whatever ethnicity you are, we are really an inclusive brand. In fact, we were voted the #1 most bipartisan brand in the US during the recent election cycle.
That is impressive.
Right? Yeah, more than
Yes.
Coca-Cola, more than Delta Airlines, more than anything. So,
yes.
So we're going to find our way in, but I want to find it in a way that makes sense for our brand and makes sense for our customer base and makes sense that we're still a real company. And we will, though, and because I'm just like fascinated with the impact that AI can have, especially in the world of personalization, serving the right customer with the right message at the right time.
Sure,
so
yeah.
I think all of us are on a journey, and we're going to continue to be at the forefront of some aspects of this, and then going to be cautiously optimistic about others to find our way in.
Most of the significant advance that has happened within AI, at least in marketing, are the places where you really are driving the results, right?
Yeah.
There is some concern that has been raised by other marketers that, a lot of these algo-driven black boxes, so to speak, as they point to, drive great results, but they don't really give you much transparency. Does that bother you?
I think I should be curious by it. I don't know if I'm bothered by it.
Okay.
And I tried to really invest the time on this particular topic, and I'll be the first one to admit I didn't know a lot about it before I started realizing, this is going to be a fundamental change in my career, my team's day to day.
Yes.
And so, again, I would say curious, not bothered, but curious enough where you're going to have some healthy skepticism on some things and some healthy optimism on some other. I do think it's interesting because when I reflect back on who my best friends at work are, what are the most natural cross-functional partners, it would always be in my line of work someone called the chief merchant, and he or she is kind of driving the business, and obviously the marketer is driving that. And while my chief merchant is still extremely important, you really could argue that the chief technology officer is now my best friend at work, because so much of what he or she is driving what marketing is able to produce and develop as well. So I think that's a fascinating journey that all of us will be on as well.
Absolutely. I think you have to absolutely jump in. You might make mistakes, but so what? You're going to learn a lot from that, right?
And I think a culture of failure, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but a culture of failure is actually good. Because especially if you're going after a consumer target like Gen Z, you have to be on the leading edge, and you have to be not afraid to make a mistake or two. And in fact, with our team, we actually celebrate the failures as much as we celebrate the successes, because I think you actually learn a lot in failure. Obviously, you don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again. But people generally have an attention span of a gnat these days because things are moving so quickly.
Of course, yeah.
So as long as you don't stub your toe on something really bad, I think to your point, you can make a mistake, learn from it, and pivot and move forward.
Get better,
That's right.
Get better at it over time.
Yeah.
One final question. So if you're in retail, you're in consumer side of the business, there are quite a few headwinds sort of lately, right? I thought we were coasting pretty well last year. And then this year, a few things that are coming up, whether it is the new policies, the politics, the consumer sentiment, all of that stuff that's kind of getting in the way, that always kind of makes the CMOs nervous. It's like, okay, where are things going to go? It just drives more uncertainty, right? You've been in the business long enough to know some smart ways to mitigate your risks. What are you doing now? You know what? What I've learned in my long retail career is that in certain environments come opportunity. And I think the best brands and the best retailers actually win mind share and win market share at this time. And I think this is a great moment for us to do that. Again, I'm not oblivious to the fact that there are things going on and the consumer is feeling a little bit cautious, but why not lean in at this particular moment? And on our recent earnings call,
our CFO, Mike Mathias, said it well. Like, this is an opportunity to continue to invest in marketing. This is an opportunity to continue to invest in brand. It's an opportunity to continue to invest in our retail environment. And hopefully there's short-term wins out of that. But American Eagle's been around since 1977. We're about to celebrate our 50th anniversary in 2027.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so you can't play this game afraid, and you can't play this game so short-sighted that you don't make bets on the future. And we have the privilege of having an amazing chairman and CEO, Jay Schonstein, whose family founded the company, and he's in it for the long game as well. So it's a balancing act. Again, we're a public company. We certainly have a fiduciary responsibility to be as efficient and as effective right now. But I actually thinking way more optimistic and way more opportunistic in this particular environment.
That's a nice way to end the discussion. Real pleasure, Craig.
Thanks, Raj. Appreciate it. Thank you.